So, how many college football teams can say they have two superheroes?
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC your first listen every single day. Whether you're watching me on YouTube or wherever you like to download your podcast, we are free. I appreciate your support. Show your appreciation. The show really does love it. If you're watching on YouTube, become a subscriber. It's free. Just click the red subscribe button. And when you see that thumbs up, hit it often. And I don't want you to miss one episode. So make sure you hit that bell notification button. And that way you get us 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. You've heard us call Caleb Williams Superman. You've watched Caleb do Superman type of things. Following practice on Thursday, running back Marshawn Lloyd said the running backs are starting to call freshman linebacker Tackett Curtis, Captain America. There it is. So I guess, does that make Coach Kyle McDonald Nick Fury? Because Lloyd said that Coach Kyle was the first person to label Tackett Curtis Captain America. Now, so the next time anybody hears Oregon say they have an army, USC can now respond with, well, we have a Superman and a Captain Avenger, or Captain America. They have two superheroes. Instead of, Tony Stark saying, well, we have a Hulk. How many teams out there have this type of hype? How many teams can build up this type of hype? This is what comes with playing in LA, Hollywood. You get these types of the hype machine playing on behind the scenes. This is what Marshawn Lloyd had to say after practice on Thursday. I feel like no one can stop him. Tackett is just one of those guys that has a motor, and he's going to give you his all every time. Following practice, Caleb Williams, Superman, he wasn't quite ready to acknowledge the Avenger. Remember, that's Superman's DC, right? Captain America, that's Marvel. Maybe there's a little bit of competition there, but he wasn't quite ready to label Tackett Curtis a superhero yet. At least not yet. But he did say this: if I had to call him something, he's a destroyer. He'll run down people, whether they're ahead of him by 20 yards, whether it's sideline to sideline, whether it's running through a gap and destroying a guard pulling, tackle pulling, whether it's a tight end coming around. He does a good job with running up there and just destroying and blowing things up, end quote. Okay. That's good enough for me until Captain America proves it in a real game. My partner over there on WeAreSC.com, Eric McKinney, he reminded everybody that Tackett Curtis is going to be turning 20 years old when USC hosts Utah in the Coliseum this year. So, again, he's not a 17-year-old playing on the big kids' playground. By the way, do they still do that in elementary school? I remember when I was in elementary school, back when we walked uphill both ways. First through, I think it was third grade, had one side of the playground. Fourth through sixth grade had the other side of the playground. And it was divided by where you ate lunch. Excuse me. So I think at this point in Tackett Curtis's career, he just needs to, just kind of play in a few college games, get up to speed, and then, all those other 20-year-old plus guys who are running around trying to destroy things, he'll be playing with guys his own age once he's in a game. Pardon me. So now, my everyday listeners, I'm not sure how many of you remember watching Brian Cushing play at USC. Because what Caleb Williams was describing was Brian Cushing. And if I start hearing practice stories about Tackett Curtis, like purposely shoulder bumping people on his way back to the drill line as an intimidation tactic, then USC's defense just got real nasty, real fast. I mean, Mason Cobb and Curtis, possible. So now you have a seasoned tackling veteran, Mason Cobb, teaching Captain America, the Destroyer, how to play linebacker. When Coach Brian Odom spoke with the media last week, I told you how he said, Tackett Curtis doesn't waste time with blockers. He just kind of finds a way to get to the ball. This was the exact quote. He doesn't confuse the main thing. And the main thing is tackle the guy with the football. He is a football playing dude on defense. He's a tackling machine. There's no doubt about it. End quote. So if Tackett Curtis's learning curve is, he's already ahead of that schedule, where does he actually fit into the rotation? But I anticipate Mason Cobb and Eric Gentry starting. And then, I'm on record that Shane Lee and Rajon Davis gives you a solid backup duo. How close is Curtis to the top of the depth chart when you start hearing the coaches talking about him this way and the players start talking about this way? You're wondering, okay, maybe this isn't just, a bunch of freshman fluff. Tackett Curtis might be the real deal, ready to play right now. I think the first couple of games should give the staff the perfect opportunity to kind of see how deep this roster really is. And, maybe we're going to see Mason Cobb and Tackett Curtis play together for a couple of series. Why not, right? But if, like I said, if all these words of excitement are true, let's see what those two can do together on the field. I know they play the same position, but hey, why not? Here's some other notes from Thursday morning's practice. They were out there in shorts and shells. The media got a chance to actually watch a little bit of the offensive line and the defensive line getting after it together. The edge defenders went one-on-one against the offensive tackles. In the interior offensive linemen, they had a drill where they worked against a double team against an interior defensive lineman, and then they would work up to that next level with the linebacker. Stanley Taufo had a really good day. Sam Green got the loudest. Eric McKinney described it as the biggest attaboy among the defensive players during one of their reps. And then let's see what else happened. Oh, on yesterday's episode, I mentioned that the freshman class, their impact, how it could be similar to the 2003 class and how USC had that resurgence. Following practice, there was a lot of talk about the freshmen from the offensive players about the offense after practice. Tons of praise for Tackett Curtis and Zion Branch. Christian Pierce's name was brought up as well as the two freshman running backs. This is what Caleb said after practice. The defense really impressed him during the scrimmage. And he added that the offense has to get better. Not in big things, but just in the small things like penalties, getting behind in the sticks. They need to be more consistent, is what he was conveying. Now, if those words of confirmation to what I've been telling you folks, throughout the week, the day before, isn't enough for, if that's not enough reason for you to make Locked On USC your first listen every day, I don't know what will. I told you all this on yesterday's episode. Then USC had practice and you hear all these confirmations of, wait, I think I heard Mark say that. But like I said, I don't know what's going to convince you that Locked On USC should be your first listen every day. It's almost like the team, the guys, they heard the show, and then they said the same thing, coaching staff, players. And it's not just around USC that these types of things are being said and heard. I'll explain that in the next segment. For every championship team, it's all about making sure every player is the perfect fit. Guess what? It's the same thing when it comes to your vehicle, because every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head on over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage. Then look for the green mark, check it, and then you're going to know the part will fit. Or you're going to get your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. Pardon me. All right, so we're gonna keep going on here with the show. Check out the rundown. Here comes the USC's defense's hype train. It's starting to spread across the country. I put this out there yesterday that USC has a championship defense this year. And the narrative apparently is spreading it's spreading. I almost used a bad pun. All of our good wishes to our friends over there in Hawaii. So every now and then, I like to see what others are saying on other shows across the country, national shows. And I'm starting to notice all of a sudden, others are getting pulled into the light. They're starting to recognize that, hey, you know what? USC might have a pretty decent defense this year. I was on a live show in Ohio yesterday called the Scarlet and Gray podcast. Huge Buckeye program, obviously. We had a lot of fun. I told them this. A championship defense for USC in 2023 doesn't have to be a top 10 or even a top 25 defense. Look, USC is going to score points this year, just like they did last year in year one, Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams. I told the Buckeye guys that USC just needs to have a defense as good as they were last year. College football analyst Craig McElroy, and he said basically the same thing in a similar sentiment, where even he stated a belief that Caleb Williams could be even better in year two. Quote, they were within a game of getting in last year, the playoffs. But first year, Coach Lincoln Riley didn't have the depth, and I don't think necessarily had the personnel on the defensive front to be able to ultimately get over that hump. You look at the offensive line. While they played great the first 10, 11 games of the season, they didn't do what they needed to do against Utah. Yeah, look, I think McElroy had a little bit of a brain fart and forgot about Caleb's hamstring in the second game, the conference championship game, let alone Eric Gentry being lost in that first game, Jordan Addison being lost in that first game. I'll say it again. I want to emphasize, in order for USC to have a championship defense in 2023, they just need to be better than average. And that'll start with being better than 123rd in the nation in tackling efficiency. That's what they were last year. In other words, just be as good as Ohio State was in 2022. Because if you look at their numbers statistically, Ohio State, their defense, they were just average, middle of the road. And that seemed to work out okay for them once USC lost that conference championship game. They jumped USC. So USC has a deeper bench. Again, if USC had this year's roster last year and they made a tackle during a goal line situation on the road in Utah, they would have been able to handle that situation without their best linebacker not being on the field. That's what literally kept USC out of the playoffs last year. Had they won that game in Salt Lake City, they still could have lost the conference championship game in Las Vegas, and they're still in the playoffs. The defensive line this year returns Tyrone Taleni, Dejon Benton, Solomon Tuliaupupu, Stanley Taufo, Corey Foreman, and Kobe Pepe. And they've got reinforcements coming in to fill that Tuli Tuiapolo void. So if the D-line was undermanned and undersized last year, the next group that was under the most scrutiny was USC's linebackers. You're not going to get an argument from anybody on this. Now that group is also deeper, and it's also more experienced. Mason Cobb, Captain America. Look, with USC's ability to score points and make the other team score with them, that's how the other teams have to stay in the game. The Trojans don't need their 2008 USC defense to walk through those doors. A championship defense in 2023 simply means having enough players to play a full season plus. Okay, say it again. They don't. If one guy goes down, they now have more than one guy that the staff trusts to go in and make a play. That's where they were last year. They're much further along in year two with Lincoln Riley. Alex Grinch has to be feeling more confident. I know the guy is gets a lot of heat, and deservedly so. A lot of people don't like his defensive scheme. But as Craig McElroy alluded to, I don't think, both of us, we don't think, and I think most people who watch the team closely and want to use some common sense would agree. They didn't have the right personnel to make the defense better. They did a quick turnaround last year with the transfer portal. This year, through the transfer portal, they were really able to address that weakness in the defensive line. You saw what they brought in. Keon Bars, Jack Sullivan, Anthony Lucas, Bear Alexander. That's just on the defensive line. They went out and brought in Mason Cobb, one of the best linebackers in the country. They supplemented the offensive line. They went out and got Michael Tarquin, Jarrett Kingston, Emmanuel Pregno. And you're still bringing back Jonah Monheim, Justin Dietich, Mason Murphy, and a super class of freshman offensive linemen that are definitely going to have an impact and a resurgence on this class, on the Trojans team. But defensively, it's starting to spread. People are saying, you know what? USC was that close. And now they're really starting to look at what they did during the offseason. And they're going to give Lincoln Riley and, more importantly, Alex Grinch the benefit of the doubt that in year two, as long as that USC offense stays prolific and scores points, the defense is probably going to be able to do enough. And that's why I've got them going undefeated in 2023. All right, let's get into it. The Friday Rant. Take a deep breath. All right. How many times is USC going to let the rest of the college football world ignore the double standard and make USC and her fans and Reggie Bush suffer the indignation? I'm tired of it. Every time a former Heisman winner or anybody who maybe didn't even have to win a Heisman Trophy, comes forward and admits they actually took money and did things way worse than what USC and what Reggie Bush was accused of doing, I get a little hunch in my back. Yeah. Fists start to clench up, butt cheeks get a little bit tighter, start biting my lip. No one at the NCAA speaks up. And the folks at the Heisman House seem to just curl up in the fetal position as well. Every time someone new comes out with, hey, look at me, this is what I did wrong. It's like it's silent. You know what? Maybe O.J. Simpson should make a visit to the Heisman House, just to kind of stir things up. I'm kidding. Calm down. I'm kidding. But on a serious note, it's not like Carson Palmer, Matt Leinart, Marcus Allen, Mike Garrett, Caleb Williams, and the ghost of Charles White. It's not like they can't flex their muscles and put out a joint statement demanding that Reggie Bush and USC get their stuff back. Put the Heisman back inside Heritage Hall where it belongs. You know what? Maybe OJ would be the perfect guy for this assignment. I'm kidding. We don't need him taking any trips to Vegas to go get anyone's collectibles back. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this segment, as you can tell. Look, the latest is Johnny Manziel and Netflix literally having the audacity to make a documentary about his shenanigans. No remorse whatsoever. They talk about all the illegal money and the autograph signings, everything that he did. And he still has his Heisman. And there's still silence from the NCAA. Can you say double standard? I can. And I can say it really loud. Here's the Cliff's Notes version of what Reggie was alleged to have done. I know a lot of my viewers were, younger back then. Maybe some of you were in that age 5 to 10-year-old range. Because back then, when Reggie was doing what Reggie was doing on the football field, a lot of the younger generation, they really don't know what took place at USC. However, everything Reggie and his family got what they're accused of doing, that came from a wannabe agent, a wannabe name, image, likeness type of guy. That's what was going on back then. It was about marketing. Reggie's stepfather and a couple of guys tried to create a marketing company that was just going to, it was all, to capitalize off of Reggie Bush's name, image, and likeness. They were getting him ready for the NFL, lining up advertisements. But it wasn't to stay at USC. They were setting him up to leave USC, not to stick around for another year. Everybody knew he was gone. He was going to the NFL. Reggie Bush and his family were not bought a house. Although the parents did have that San Diego house, their rent paid for, by a guy who was a part owner of an Indian casino in San Diego. Again, it was all about NIL stuff. His parents also had their airfare paid for going to road games. Guess what? That's like common standard practice now, everywhere. And yeah, his parents were taking other ancillary, perks that were being offered then. Again, all this stuff is just standard operating procedure now. But nothing I mean, so everything that USC and Reggie Bush were accused of, nothing was going on in other places. And the NCAA looked the other way. I mean, Troy Smith, literally his car at Ohio State, they used to leave the window cracked so people could just come by and drop off envelopes full of money. That's a fact. I know people who did it. And what's the absolute worst part about this whole thing is USC's part. Because nobody at USC, or for that matter, even when the Pac-12 was the Pac-12, did anything to kind of combat or just argue the narrative that was out there. No, they just kind of went silent. And they let everybody just step all over USC. That's how much jealousy and envy was going on around at the time. And again, this is why Trojan fans start to, they want to fight every time this comes up. I mean, someone has to. I mean, if Johnny Manziel and Netflix are so brazen to just throw out and make money off of it, look, I don't know what it's going to take to get the people at USC off their butts and to say something. You know what? Maybe Reggie should open a bar, restaurant that serves alcohol in the Village, kind of like what Johnny's doing in College Station. Maybe that'll get everybody's attention at USC. I don't know. I'm not mad at the people at USC. I just wish they'd say, you know what? Enough is enough. We're going to put the Heisman back inside Heritage Hall, and we would like the Heisman Foundation to help us make that happen. Otherwise, tell them to ask for Johnny's stuff back. Or anybody else who broke the rules and everybody knew about it. All right, there it is. I'm done with my Friday rant. And we're done with this episode of Locked On USC. I hope you had a good time at the show. I did. When you come back next week, USC is going to be that much closer to kicking off the season. Yeah, we're in mock game week. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.